All right. S- Oh, sorry. Let me just double check, make sure we're connected. All right. So we'll just, I'll probably just be talking for 15 minutes today, just on classes to take. Let me stop sharing on my tablet so you can see what's on my computer screen. I'm going to upload the annotated notes from the final lecture slide, and I put it all under annotated notes here. I have uploaded at the very bottom solutions and the final exam from 2023 and from 2021. I didn't upload 2022 because we had a different format that year. And yeah, I think these two should be a good representation of what to expect. I mean, I wrote these exams, so if I haven't really changed that much in the last 3 years, it should be something similar to it. Uh, Office hours this week will be, like I said last week, and then the announcements will be during lecture hours. I think I'm going to change my office hours for Tuesday and Thursday as well, just to be online only from 4 to 4:30 instead for people who have work. So I'm going to make an announcement on that. Let's see what else. Anything? Tuesday, Thursday, I'm saying the office hours because right now yeah, after class, yeah, it's not going to be in person because I'm gonna have the in person during lecture hours. And I know most of y'all who have like are free can just come to this session instead. So I'm just gonna get rid of this 3 to 4 and from 11:30 to 12:30 and just have it online from I think 4 to 4:30 and 4:30 to 5 instead. Uh, What else? We have the final homework due. It's only 3 questions long, so it should be relatively okay. You can come in and just work on it. And one last thing, my survey is out, so please take the survey. It'll help me improve. Last year we had a high of 80% participation. There was also a little bit of incentive for getting 80% or higher. They got exactly 80%. I gave the whole class extra time on the final exam. I'm not going to do that this year. I'll just give you the extra time on the final exam out of my goodwill and Christmas spirit. But please take it as a little bit of like if a I mean it just helps me, it's what worked, what didn't work. You might not have a section where that it has that. You can just type it into one of the answers on what worked or what didn't work, or yeah, just answer it. It helps me, and yeah, to improve it for next year. Because every year I constantly update my notes, change, tweak, make small tweaks. The one thing that people, I won't say a lot of people complain about, but is universally disliked are the exams. That is not going anywhere though. That is still staying because I would say that the material we cover in this class is not advanced enough to make it worthy of a project, and projects take a lot of time for me to grade as well. Now, the exams just make it easy for me to kind of assess where everyone is at, and then I just apply my own curve, and then I just bump everyone up. Uh, One thing about grades, like I know I have somewhere on here my syllabus saying like this is the minimum you have to get to achieve a certain GPA. Depending on where everyone is at, I that's the minimum. So you can only go higher from that point on. So I try to bump everyone up too. So don't worry about too much about grades unless you've been missing homeworks, like all of the homeworks. And that's it. That's all I have on logistics. I'm gonna be hounding you every day about taking the survey. Thank you to the two who are already taking it. So I appreciate that. And that'll be it. So today I'm not going to cover new material. Instead, I'll just share my experiences at UW with classes I've taken. And I'm going to go in order of, I guess, classes if we were to go in order of like intermediate to advanced controls courses. And I'll talk a little bit about what each class is, like the big picture. Oh no, we lost signal. Okay, I just unplugged everything. All right, I think we're back. All right, so I'm gonna go in order of classes I've taken, a little bit brief overview of like the big picture of these classes. Please keep in mind that these are just classes I have taken. If I don't cover a class, it's likely because I haven't taken it. And also the curriculum really depends on the professor who teaches it too, so it can change. So don't sue me if it's different from what I told you. But shouldn't change too much. So we're gonna start with ME 547 next because that's actually the next class that if you do want to take, which is next quarter, it's the most logical next step if you're new to control systems, and it's just linear systems. So if you think of my class as part one, think of this class as part two. This is like a part two to controls. Part two to control systems. Like, and when I'm talking about control, I'm talking about classical control theory. This is a control theory. This is a foundation class that if you are serious about this field, you should take it. Uh, but this class is more of a broader picture where it talks about multiple subjects that are also covered in depth in other controls classes. The first thing you'll notice, or first 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to be in discrete time. So we've done everything in continuous time, but all these algorithms are done in discrete time. So you're just going to do everything we did in continuous time, but now in discrete time. And one thing you're going to notice is that when we talk about stability in continuous time, we put everything in the left half plane. In discrete time, you put everything into the unit circle. So we have this thing, we map everything, the whole domain, the whole stability domain from the left half plane into a unit circle. And there's some weird warping issues that occur in some drop off in, I guess, mapping accuracy when you do this, and some stability issues if you change your sampling time. This is very dependent on like how fast you sample things, and your systems might become unstable with that. This class doesn't talk about aliasing or go into the nitty-gritty details of controller design in discrete time, but it gives you a general overview of discrete time. So think of it as a broad overview. Second thing that they cover, well, Professor Chen will be teaching this next quarter. Most likely, I am your TA next quarter as well for this class. And so we no longer will have the student to teacher relations. I'll be downgraded to a student again. So I think I'll be more chill during office hours. Uh, so yeah, I'll be more helpful, I guess, because he'll be the one holding the answers, and I'll just help you. I'll just try to help y'all pass. I'm gonna try to help y'all pass anyway. But um, so discrete time, broad overview, and then they talk about it's called canonical forms, and what that means is it's going to be putting stuff into state space specifically. There's going to be different forms of state space forms for special cases, like if you have repeated poles, what do your A, B, C, D matrix look like? If you have complex conjugates, you learn something called the observable canonical observable. Man, I cannot write today. Observable, observable. Is that how you spell it? Canonical form and the controllable canonical form. And then, so those are just different forms of state space. Each has their own advantage. One other thing you're going to learn about is called observers. And that's like the start of, basically, this is like the start of filtering. You learn about the basics of filtering, like the very, very basics. So you might talk about common filtering, which is probably the most important kind of feedback control industry uses besides. So with PID, we use error, but with common filtering, we guess it's like the precursor to making a feedback controller better. So what common filtering does is if you have uncertainty in your model, it can try to guess, or if you have certain states you cannot observe. Let's say we have a pendulum on the cart and we can only observe the angle of the pendulum, but we can't observe anything else. Like if we have a double pendulum here, we can only measure this angle, but this angle here is unknown. Common filters can guess what that angle is. So that's the broad stroke of ME 547. So I think this is the next class you should take if you're serious about going into controls, because a lot of the prereqs for these more advanced classes require 547. And even if they don't, this definitely helps. This is a strong prereq for this is a strong prereq for advanced controls classes. Okay, even though even though I am recording it, keep this a secret. The department, I don't, as of last year I checked, you can take all these classes without prereqs. They won't enforce it, but they strongly encourage it. Uh, so if you have very good controls backgrounds and you don't think you need to take this class, you don't have to, and you can still take other controls classes. But if you don't feel very strong about these classes, then you should take this class. That being said, though, I just follow the prereqs, okay? Um, the one after that, and you don't have to take it in order now. So this is the next class you can take. Everything else you can take out of order, kind of out of order. So you can take these out of order. So you can take out of order now. Actually, any questions on 547? And last year they had a midterm report and a final report. There's no exams. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year, but last year was the first time we did no exams and just a midterm report and a final report. And the midterm project and the final project are the same project. It's just an extension of your midterm project. Okay, so the next one is 548. It's also offered by the A department as well. It's usually taught jointly. And this is going to be on MIMO systems. So this is multi-input, multi-output systems. So if we have like multiple inputs going to a system, and we have multiple outputs, call those U1, U2, Y1, Y2, Y3. There's going to be it's hard to make a feedback controller because maybe you have a feedback for all of these three outputs going to each different input. So you kind of deal with cases where you have multi-input, multi-output systems. One thing that we learned in this class was designing common filters for, I'll just call it KF. KF for MIMO systems, and stability for MIMO. You learn about stability for MIMO systems as well. And when you have MIMO systems and you do controller design, it's all a trade-off on which output and input you want to optimize the best. And there's going to be some topics on like some stability analysis, and it's also a little bit of optimization sprinkled in. Oh, one thing I do want to state about 547. You also learned something about Lyapunov stability. And the reason why this is important is because this is used in nonlinear analysis. So nonlinear analysis. And you also learn about the Riccati equation, which is going to be guaranteed used in advanced classes, advanced controls classes, especially with nonlinear. Okay, so that's 548. Any questions? I'm not going to go in order of numbers per se because just because it's like you see 547, 548, and 545. I actually just chose 545 because at that option I had a bunch of numbers to pick, and then I'm like, well, I'll just choose 545 because it seems like it seems sequential, but after 547, it's not sequential at all. Okay, let's go to ME 585. This is system identification. Also, another really good fundamental class, system identification. And basically, how system identification works is if I have my plant, and this is unknown, and this is more of a, it's not like machine learning or AI, but it's building models using data. So this is building models using data. So what we can do is we can measure our input and we measure our output. And then based off of how the input, whatever input we feed it and how the output responds, we build a model off of it. And I think what's useful about this class is if we were to look at the Bodhi plot and we were to have a yeah, let's say we were to put like 10 different, this is a Bodhi plot now. And this is frequency, this is my magnitude. And let's say we were to have different inputs, like let's say we ran an input at 1 hertz, an input at 10 hertz, 20 hertz, 30, 40, 50, and maybe here we have one at the resonance, right? We were to determine the resonance. Then what system identification does is system ID. So it's usually written as SID. It's going to make a best guess on what that model looks like. And usually the input isn't like us running different frequencies. We do a sweep because we do a sweep and we see how the output responds. And either sweep or basically a bunch of impulses. But when you look at the I guess the spectral graph, our input is going to be it's just basically putting in a bunch of noise as the input because and then we see how the noisy output responds and then we can build a system ID from that. And the reason why we use noise is because noise is broadband, meaning it covers the whole frequency range. So we build models and we guess G of S. And there's going to be a mathematic way of deriving system identification. Uh, when we're running it in programs, we just plug in input and output data and then gives us a best guess model, and we just specify what order model we want to use. So this is for working with unknown models, unknown model identification. That right there. Any questions on this class? No, it's not. It uses it's not machine learning. Basically all it's doing is it's linear regression. So ML is basically all right. I'll show you my notes on ML. Well, this is like very basic reinforcement learning. Basically ML we take a bunch of ML is just an optimization problem where we feed it a bunch of we feed it an input and then we see an output and then we guess how many state variables we want to identify. And then it basically just sums up each of these nodes on. I'm not an expert on ML. Basically, it's just trying to. Man, I'm gonna butcher this so bad. you basically feed it through a bunch of these networks, and basically each of these networks will be a zero or a one, and and then and then you basically want to reduce the number of I don't want to say too much actually. I'm gonna completely butcher it. Yeah. Uh I think of ML as just a optimization problem. We're trying to minimize the cost. Yeah, AI is just an optimization problem. Now, the optimization they use is varies. There's so many optimization techniques. The most basic optimization you can use is convex optimization, but convex optimization assumes you have it's a linear system. Um, and ML uses gradient, like a very common tool used in ML is gradient descent. And you're just basically taking the derivative and trying to see where things converge to. The thing with ML is that you never know if the convergence point you hit is a true minimum or a local minimum, like a global minimum or local minimum. I guess like maybe I guess maybe the simplest ML I can think of is if I were to look for edge features. If I were to look for edge features, like you see all these like dots, think of them as pixels, and I were to put a image on it, and let's say I'm looking for vertical edges. What what I'm going to do is it's going to each dot's going to return a one when it sees like a vertical edge and a zero when it doesn't see it. And then what I do is I sweep this image as it moves across. Like maybe you have an image move, like a video. It's going to see how those vertical features move, and then I feed it through a neural network, and it can somehow build a model from that. I don't quite understand why because my specialization is actually not in ML. Uh, So actually, because we're talking about ML, another class you can take is the one that Steve Brunton teaches with Michelle Hickner. Um, and it's machine learning, but it's rooted in machine learning, but I don't remember. It's a special topics class. It's not a permanent class, but it's machine learning with the emphasis on control systems. So they go over the very broad picture of common ML techniques like reinforcement learning, model predictive control, and things like that. I think 599 is offered spring. This is usually spring. Well, it's a good thing you have in theory, you can have up to two spring quarters here, right? This is winter. And it's not always offered every year, actually. It really depends on, wait, no, nope. 548 is spring. Yeah, all the fun controls classes are offered in spring. I don't know why. And the professors are also depressed too. Okay, okay. I think there's an ME 549. I just have not taken it. What's next? What should I do next? Yeah, but they don't always follow that schedule. It's based on the availability of professors who can also teach it. Yeah. Okay. There are cases where these classes aren't offered for 2 years and maybe they're offered on the third year. I've taken all these classes because I've been around for a while. So, okay, let's go to ME. Okay, 581. So this is digital control systems. So this is all about it's the digital controls is basically my class, but in digital controls, like in discrete time. So it deals with discrete time, stability in discrete time. So discrete time, like stability. You'll also look at PID controller design in discrete time. You also deal with aliasing. You guys all know about aliasing, right? Where if we have a, well, I'm not gonna ask that because if you actually don't aren't sure, that's okay. Let's say aliasing occurs when, let's say, I only make infrequent measurements and my alias measurement looks like that. That's aliasing. So you learn about sampling time, like choosing a sampling time, what happens when you see aliasing. Um, so it's just this class, but but um, but in discrete time. So this is a focus on classical controls in discrete time. Okay. Um, Moving forward, we also have ME 583, and there's two nonlinear classes offered by the department. I think, I don't know the official names. I'm just doing it off of memory. Nonlinear control systems or controls. This is more of a nonlinear analysis class. And maybe the way I think of nonlinear analysis is if we have a output that is like kind of going like this, we want to see if we can guarantee bounds on our output response. So then if let's say this is maybe a better way of saying like like this is called global asymptotic, like global exponential stability or something like that. And maybe a better way of saying it is like it should be drawn like that or something like that. Basically, what we're saying is we're just looking at how our nonlinear system behaves, and then we're like, okay, we can guarantee a bound on this. Then it's going to be guaranteed stable for maybe it's not asymptotically stable, but it's stable based off of a different definition of stability. It's more of a nonlinear analysis class and less rooted in controls, but this is required to take ME 550, which is also uh, yep, move this down. This is nonlinear optimal control, where you now design a controller, an optimal controller, um, for nonlinear systems. So you design optimal controller for nonlinear systems. The thing you learn about nonlinear controls is that every system is unique in that there's no one universal controller for this kind of system. These are both very theory heavy. And unless you use it, it's you're gonna forget this information pretty quickly because I don't use it and I don't remember much from these two classes. But I remember more or less the big picture. I think this is usually offered, these are both offered fall. Uh, oh yeah, digital controls is offered spring. I know I'm missing at least one. There's also going to be a lot of special topics classes. Some of them will be controls based, some will not be. I just don't remember off the top of my head. Oh, another one. ME 594. This is robust control. It's also rooted in like optimization, where we guarantee minimum performance metrics based on uncertainty. So with robust control, how do we guarantee something is stable if we have uncertainty? Well, we look at the largest uncertainty that the system experiences. Based off of that, we say, all right, this is how the worst case scenario of how it will perform, and we can also guarantee. We can also determine how much uncertainty the system can handle before it becomes unstable. I think this one's one of my favorite ones. If I can remember the number, 583. It's feed forward control. 593. Thank you. 583 is nonlinear analysis. Thank you. 593. Feed forward. Oh, this is offered spring, based off of the professor's availability. Feed forward control. I think this class is offered spring, and this is Devasia's, Professor Devasia's. A lot of his early work was in feed forward control, where basically, like, when we have our standard feedback control. So this is feedback, and this is y, and this is our input u. And the downside of this is with feedback, you're always inherently behind your system. So instead of being behind, we can actually say, well, we kind of have a guess of what our system will work. We have a guess of our model. And since we have our model, we can now improve our system by pre-actuating the commands for our system first, and then using feedback to correct for modeling errors. So what this is feed forward. And what we do is we take our model G and we invert it. And we, instead of having our input be whatever input it is, we actually feed it a desired output. We want the output to be this. So we feed it into our inverse model and we get our desired input. Then we feed it into our actual model. And then we get our actual output, and we use feedback to correct for modeling errors. Now, you can't always just take the inverse of G and be like, all right, I'm done. Um, if G has non-minimum phase zeros, meaning zeros in the right half plane, if you invert it, you have an unstable inverse. So you have to find he teaches you methods of dealing with unstable inverses. There's also something with causality where if the order of G, like let's say the denominator of G is a higher power than the numerator of G, that's also a non-causal system, meaning you can't just invert it. So there are methods of dealing with it. And then you also deal with when you do these inverses and you have to like fix it, you also introduce like phase delays or mismatch in magnitude at certain frequencies. So this itself is a really, really fun class and kind of flipped how I thought about controls, like what we can get away with. Um, or not what we can get away with, but just it broke me out of the mold of saying, oh, just feedback is good enough. No, feed forward is also nice as well. Um, yeah. So personal bias, but one of my favorite controls classes. I think that's it. There's a few special topics classes, but since they're offered so infrequently, I'm not going to talk about them because they might not be offered at all. Uh, so just keep an eye out on ME 599 for special topics classes. And also, you don't have to take classes offered by ME. You can take classes offered by the AA department or by the E department or CSE on classes that seem interesting. I know there are like registration locks, but just shoot the professor an email and they can also override that and add you manually if there are spots left. And if you have questions about taking classes or special topics classes or any more detailed questions about these classes, just feel free to email me. I can give you general we can talk more about it. Are any questions about that? Last thing I want to talk about is like maybe math classes. And I only have two. First one is ME 510, which some of you might have taken. And this is like really helpful. This is all linear algebra, and controls is rooted in linear algebra. And then the second class I don't really recommend you taking is convex optimization. I I only recommend if you do optimization for your research. And this is mainly tailored towards PhD students. You can still take it. There are master students who took convex optimization, but I wouldn't really take it unless you are doing optimization. It's really helpful if you want to take machine learning because all the very basics of machine learning uses convex optimization. I mean, now there's much more advanced optimization techniques, but this is the foundation for um, all optimal optimization work. Uh, the thing about the reason I still mention it is because all controls are optimization problems where we're trying to minimize our input cost and get and maximize our desired output. So it's all an optimization problem. Another class I think it's kind of like that runs parallel with this class, and some of you have taken it, and you might see the parallel is ME 588. You know, I noticed that there's a lot the vibration um, using Fourier transform. There's a lot of overlap with that in this class as well with Bode plots. So I guess like if I were to make a tree diagram, we have I'm just gonna write the numbers 545, which goes down to 547, and then we have 548, which is MIMO, 581. I'm gonna put 593 here. Think these two are the prereqs for that class. 548, 585, 583. Oh, yeah. 550. Oh, nope. I'm going to put 583 here. So that's 548. Then this is 583, which is nonlinear analysis. Then you can take 550, which is nonlinear optimal control. I think I'm missing some. 593, 581, 547, 548, 583, 550. What else am I missing? 594. 550, 581. Oh, I guess machine learning can be. These are the order of how I would take the classes. Actually, to be honest, I think it should be that though. It'll be a little bit easier if you take 547, but I think the official prereqs is that. Digital controls, which is 581, and feed forward, you only need 545. You don't need 547 actually for those two classes. 599, yeah, I feel comfortable with this recommendation for classes you want to take. 550 is the class that I would not take with unless you feel very comfortable with nonlinear analysis already, or if you're a masochist and you just want to cause yourself pain. And then for the math class, I would just take 510 first. You definitely have to take 510 first before you take 578 for the math class. Uh, so 510, well, if you've taken 510 and you're taking this class, it should be a lot easier in terms of the math. 510 just gives you that math background that makes you more comfortable with controls. I think of 510 or control systems as applied linear algebra and applied differential equations where we just use the concepts from these classes, from these math classes to understand what's going on. So it helps with understanding what's going on without needing as much of a intuition or like what's going on in real systems. You're able to take things more for granted with these math classes. Well, actually, with just 510. Any questions? Sorry, that took longer than I expected. All right, well, um, that doesn't leave us that much time for office hours, but I'll be here the rest of the week, so we can just call it for today. Now I'll upload this online too.